Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another costed game here in the content creator preview of the AoE 4 Sultans Ascend DLC. We have Valdemar to the south playing as the Byzantines in purple. To the north, it is going to be the Ayyubids under the command of Beasty in yellow. Now, disclaimer, as these civilizations are fairly new and as much as the players are still figuring them out, that kind of applies to me as well. So, apologies if I'm not perfect from the meta of these civilizations just yet. We're here to learn together. Anyway, looking at the Ayyubids, you won't see many major differences here in Dark Age. It's a variant civilization of the Abbasids. But once we start going up to feudal age, that's where you will see those differences that distinguishes it from ordinary Abbasids. So let's talk about the Byzantines in the meantime. One of the things that you see over here is a cistern being placed by Valdemar. Now, this building is essentially the heart and soul of the Byzantines. First of all, it's going to give you a buff, which is a gather rate buff, starting at 5%, but once you increase the level of the cisterns, which you can do by connecting it to other cisterns, you're going to get that buff all the way up to 25% even. So you see these villagers being buffed, that's a passive 5% income boost right from the get-go. Now, at the same time, the cisterns will give you an aura that you can choose. You see military production rate, research rate, or building damage taken. All of these are very valuable, but early game, we're likely going to keep it on military production. So, to start, you see Valdemar is getting a nice little eco boost. This is actually a well-positioned cistern. It's going to impact the gold miners, it's going to impact the berry villagers, or the sheep villagers, beg your pardon. Lumberjacks as well. And most importantly, berry villagers, because this is where we have to start talking about this little thing you see in the top right corner. That is olive oil, which is a unique fifth resource for the Byzantines, and you get this passively when you work on olive groves, which is essentially the farm equivalent for Byzantines, and when you work on berries. We will see a great use of this. In fact, I have an upcoming build order video which uses the olive oil to get very nice fast castle timing. But you will see that being used in a variety of ways. We're going to talk about that once we get closer. The feudal age landmark here for Valdemar is going to be the Grand Vinery, which is essentially a mill. So it's going to be right next to the berries. But it's also something that's going to give you a lot more olive oil. So this is something that you can use to boost your early olive oil income. And through that, unlock either early mercenaries or sell that pack of olive oil to get a nice fast castle timing. Mining camp on stone coming up over here for Valdemar. This is going to be a second town center in all certainty. Now you may have noticed that Valdemar is already at 24 stone. This is because Byzantines get extra stone every time they build a building. And it makes it much more reasonable and much easier to get an additional town center going. You get a bunch of passive stone, means that you don't have to mine as much to get that second town center. In fact, you will see quite a bit of stone coming in, about 30-ish or so, when this Grand Vinery completes. On the other side, let's talk about Beasty though, because this is a good moment to talk about the Ayyubids. So the Ayyubids, they can age up with wings on the House of Wisdom just like the Abbasids can, but they can choose between two options for each of the age ups. You see, Beasty went with Growth, which gives him 3 villagers, compared to Industry, which gives him 300 wood. Now, from what I've seen in Ayyubid games, a lot of players like to go with the 300 wood option, because it expedites that second town center being built, but it looks like Beasty is just going to go with the 3 extra villas, which is also a pretty nice bonus, to be honest. Now, here comes the second cistern for Valdemar. You see, once they are connected by these aqueducts, you will see the level of both of these rise to 2, and that's going to unlock that plus 10% gather rate compared to the ordinary 5%. It's also going to boost the effect of Conscriptio from 20% to 40%. So you will have an even faster military production. It looks like we're going to have a mercenary house come in. So Byzantines can use their olive oil to purchase mercenaries, which are essentially units from other civilizations. You could see some Mongol units, the Keshik. You could see some Rus units like the Streltsy, all being available to the Byzantines. In fact, some units are also available on the trade posts, So he could actually get Musafari warriors, for instance, or camel archers from this trade post. Now, the type of unit that you unlock essentially depends on what contract you go for. And it looks like he's going to go for the Western contract, which is, I guess, the most popular option right now between the players. Unlocks the Longbowman in Feudal Age, and then once you get deeper in the game, Landsknechte and the Streltsy. He's still heavy on the stone, so we will see a second Town Center very soon. But we could see some longbows here early on. We're going to have to keep an eye out on that. Beasty coming in with the second Town Center, no surprise in there. It's going to be on the hunt. Aside from that, this is a fairly standard Abbasid-style feudal age here for Beasty with minor modifications. As I said, he has the extra villagers. He is potentially going to age up to Castle Age with a Culture Wing. Here in the Culture Wing, you have this discounted option, the Advancement, which not only decreases the cost, but it also accelerates your Castle Age progress. So that could be a valuable one for him to grab. But also, Military Wing has been popular. Trade Wing as well, though. In fact, I think Trade Wing has been the most popular so far. The hardest to understand as well, though. We're going to talk about that if he opts to go for that. Second TC on the way here for Valdemar as well. You see now the aqueducts are level 2, so we are getting a plus 10% buff for these villagers here. My apologies, I forgot to switch this to the villager count, something that I did in my previous cast, so you couldn't see the Dark Age build, but, well, apologies for that. As I said, I have a build order coming out here for the Byzantines, so that's hopefully something that will compensate a tiny bit for that. Anyway, for the time being, we don't see much coming out here from Valdemar. He doesn't really have an olive oil, or enough olive oil to get the first batch of Longbowmen. Beasty, just chilling, focusing on the eco, grabbing survival techniques, means that his hunters will be very effective. And we are going to have some Desert Raiders coming out. Now, this is a brand new unit for the Ayyubids. It's a pretty expensive one, 80 food, 80 wood, or 50 wood and 50 gold. But it's a unit that can switch between a melee attack and an archer attack. You see, right now it's a melee mode, has 13 base attack with a sword, and a bonus damage against cavalry. So it kind of acts as a camel rider. Also has 5 melee armor, by the way, so this guy is no pushover. Now, Beasty just switched it to the bow, and if he goes for a bow, he has 7 base attack with 4.5 tiles range. Kind of acts like a camel archer. It's a very versatile unit, and it's great for this raiding that Beasty wants to do. Now, response to this should just be the Longbowmen, and indeed, we have the mercenaries coming in here. Barracks will also be placed, where the Byzantines have 2 unique units. The Limitane is a spearman equivalent with some unique abilities. And the Varangian Guard is kind of like a man-at-arms that has this berserk ability. They can also build ships, which is, I think, a pretty cool feature. Not something that you will really use on Dry Arabia, though. Longbows just pop out. Beautiful positioning here for Valdemar. You see, for 500 olive oil, you get 5 longbows. And he's able to pick off that one rather expensive camel. Response from Beasty will be Horsemen. Don't be surprised if we are going to see some Limitanae coming in here soon. 3rd TC for Valdemar. He is focusing a lot on his eco here. I don't think this wanted to be a house, though. I think this wanted to be a lumber camp because this is a very awkward spot for a house. Kind of body blocking the villagers from reaching the lumber camp. Villager count still in the favor of Beasty. You just see that Ayyubid boost from the initial villagers and then off the back of that second town center. Eventually, Valdemar is going to catch up, but that's going to take a couple more minutes. For now, he's playing a defensive game, kind of what you expect from the Byzantines if they don't go for the Hippodrome landmark. With the Hippodrome, they could be the aggressors with cavalry, but given that right now it's just Mercenary House and Barracks, they don't really have the mobility to move out here. So it's going to be a defensive game for the time being for Valdemar. Needs to be cautious here against those horsemen, but Beasty, cautious himself, he's going to pull back his cavalry for the time being. So let's talk about the Limitanae here. Light melee infantry, kind of like a spearman, but it does have a shield wall ability. Now the shield wall essentially makes this very slow moving, but very resistant to arrow fire. It can be a useful tool, but you're kind of a sitting duck when you pop this ability. So this is one of those moments where you can technically pop this, but you have to be very cautious doing that. Here comes the first push. Here you see Camel Archers chipping away at that one Spearman unit. Defensive tower on the way. Longbow is doing a good job picking off these Desert Raiders. They're fairly fragile. They only have 120 HP, so Longbows can actually pick them off. Beasty looking to dive this, though, realizing that there is only one Spearman, so he could actually jump those Longbows. New Spearmen aren't really appearing, though. Villagers actually being rallied over here. They bring out their spears, pushing away the cavalry for the time being, but Valdemar is struggling here for the control of these berries, or not just the berries, but the hunt as well. Longbow is still doing a good job, though, and there's a second batch coming in from the mercenary camp, as well as some Limitane coming in to farm transition already in for Valdemar, though. I hate this farm spot. Now, first of all, these are olive groves, but they just act as farms. They do get 60% more oil from olive groves, and when you build heavily into the mercenaries, this is definitely something that you want to have, so you want to place it close to the Grand Vinery. But I don't like how these farms will be very exposed here on the front line. Anyway, defensive tower is up here. Another unique ability that you will see for the Byzantines is that in Castle Age, they can actually get mangonel emplacements on their towers. Something that could be very useful defending this area. Speaking of Castle Age, Beasty is already aging up, and he's got a massive resource bank as well. Just goes to show how powerful this Ayyubid economy is. So he's going up with the bizarre option. Not bizarre, but bizarre, actually. So the bizarre option, as we have a bit of a skirmish over here, Beasty maybe a little overzealous, fighting into multiple longbows plus the tower fire. Will lose quite a few units here. But he is up to the Castle Age with the trade wing, and you will see this unique trade option coming in here. So first of all, you have these options to buy resources with gold, but also you see these are unique options unlocked here that you can use to buy, let's say, men-at-arms style unit like the Bedouin Swordsman, or a Bedouin Skirmisher, which is very similar to the Malian Javelin Throwers. Now you have these neutral traders, and essentially the way this works is that you can pop this and then a trader disappears. So Beasty now has a bunch of Bedouin Swordsmen. I think these aren't really men-at-arms-like, actually, beg your pardon. You see they have basically no melee armor. It's like a light sword infantry. And every time Beasty pops one of these trades, a trader disappears from here. So he only has 2 more traders here, means that he can pop this card twice more. This actually is a pretty good buff for Beasty because he just got a bunch of Bedouin Swordsmen for himself. He's also mixing in some Ghulam. So he's going to be heavy on the infantry. Castle Age coming in as well for Valdemar. He's going up with the Golden Horn Tower, which gives you mercenary units periodically. Now the key issue with this is that periodically means that you need to wait for it, as we have some Camel Lancers coming in, unique units to the Abbasids. Crazy range on that lance. This is a very scary heavy cavalry style unit that's going to be difficult to deal with for Valdemar. Now the Bedouin Swordsmen are lightly armored, so the longbows should have no issues with them. But the Camel Raiders, they are just scary, man. They are going to dive underneath the DC. They do have 6 ranged armor as well. And it looks like the landmark will be spotted here too. Only a handful of spears over here for Valdemar to fight this. Bedouin Swordsman also closing distance. Spearman finding a nice little choke point here to fight this. But numbers are just not there for Valdemar. He's going to suffer massive casualties here as the Camel Riders will just focus the villagers. Eventually the Bedouin Swordsman will be taken down, but that's just kind of a meat shield right now. And they're also mixed with Ghulam, which do have 6 ranged armor. It's actually pretty difficult to focus down the Bedouin Swordsman mixed with these Ghulam. And casualties are just mounting up way too high. And you see, it takes 2 minutes to get these mercenaries out from the Golden Horn Tower. That's way too much for Valdemar to deal with. He's just being overrun, 28 army to 3. He was on 3 TCs, a little late to the party in Castle Age, but I feel like it just came down to the lack of military production. His production was essentially based around mercenaries. He was very dependent on olive oil, and he just didn't have the numbers to match up with Beasty. Whereas for Beasty, he played a very standard game here, something that you would commonly see from a civilization like the Abbasids as well. Kind of played into that 2 TC into Castle Age build, but obviously leveraged the Ayyubid power as well. Quickly popping out a bunch of those Bedouin Swordsmen to build up his numbers, and he mixed them with some Ghulam, mixed them with the unique Camel Lancer, ultimately overrunning Valdemar. Hopefully you've enjoyed this game. If you did, I greatly appreciate if you subscribe to this channel. It helps me greatly. And hopefully you will enjoy some future costs as well, because I have a lot more coming with the new civilizations in this creator preview. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.